Oh, I see. Hi, Christina.
Oh, hi, Bill. There you are.
I was wondering why Kevin Wagstaff was coming up as William Gaddy, but that's because I forwarded him my Zoom invite. But,
I just noticed that.
yeah.
That's funny. Sam and I are very busy letting people in who are in the waiting room. Apologies for this. Zoom, it's a whole new world. Should be able to get started in just one more minute. Okay. Sam, if you can keep an eye on participants, I'm going to pull up the chat screen so I have that. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm to the meeting to review the proposal by Trek Development for mixed income housing at the Albright Church site, the current Albright Church site. I'm Christina Howell, I'm the Executive Director of Bloomfield Development Corporation. On the call and providing support is Sam Spearing. He's our Housing and Mobility Coordinator. There's Sam, who will be taking extensive notes this evening. Sorry, excuse me one second. I needed to write notes too. Also admitting people in and helping me keep track of questions as they come in. So Bloomfield Development Corporation, oh, so sorry. I'm having my screen's blank. Can everyone hear me and see me okay? Just nod
Yes.
or, oh, okay,
Yes.
great. Okay. Well, I'll pretend like it's all fine. So Bloomfield Development Corporation, our mission is to build a thriving, diverse community through equitable engagement. And our goal is a Bloomfield where everyone can build a home, a business, and a future. Our programs or our work includes creating and preserving affordable housing, supporting and promoting our small businesses, ensuring safe transportation, a safe transportation experience for all users, helping residents meet basic needs such as housing, food security, urgent needs such as transportation to work, and yeah, and then producing the Bloomfield Saturday Market. And then one of the other things we do, which is why we're here tonight, is that we work with the community and developers to ensure that new development reflects the community and meets residents' needs and ensures a very transparent development process where the community can interact directly with developers and ask questions. So Again, this meeting is to review plans prepared by Trek. Sam, if you'd be able to drop a PDF or something of the agenda. It's very simple. Our agendas for these meetings are simple. Obviously, we'll do some little intro period, logistics, housekeeping things here first. Then I will turn the meeting over to Bill Gotti of Trek and his team. They will speak for up to 20 minutes, give a presentation, share some slides on their proposal. And then after that, I will moderate questions and answers between all of you here. And so during the during the presentation by the developer, we try not to take any questions because often they will answer questions that come up. So if you don't want to lose track of a question, feel free to drop it in the chat. Once we open the Zoom to questions, there's a little hand raise button under more that may be at the bottom of your screen. Nope. Sorry. I don't know where that went. I usually try to point out where it is. Well, my system may be different, but there's a little hand raise button, or if that's not working for you, you can always, when there's a break, unmute yourself, let us know that you're waiting. We do ask that you keep yourself muted during the meeting. Open reactions and the hand raises under the emoji. Thank you, Jennifer Haven. Yeah, so anyway, sorry. And for those of you who are calling in, we understand it can be difficult to see what is going on. So please know that this meeting is being live streamed on Facebook right now. And that once the question period opens, for anyone who is on the phone, we will go to you first and give you an opportunity to ask any questions or make comments. Great, okay. So we talked about a little bit about the flow of the meeting. After the question and answer period, usually right around after we've spent about an hour listening to the presentation and with questions and answers, then we will thank the developers and their team for being with us and excuse them from the meeting and have a conversation around what folks think about this and try to get some very honest feedback. That portion of the meeting is also fairly generally summarized in our notes that we take and released publicly on our website, our social media, and handed to the developer via email. And we can also distribute them to you via email if you would like us to do that. So logistics, again, please stay muted. Questions in the chat, raise hands. Sorry, I keep going back to these are my in-person meeting notes. So I have things like where the bathroom is located. I have to keep skipping over that. Great. Sam, have I left out anything that needs to be gone over quickly?
I don't believe so.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And then again, because Sam is taking notes, I may, stop someone, or he may, just to clarify the notes or make sure he's capturing your question or your comment clearly. We try not to do that too often, but just want to prepare you that is a possibility. So with all of that said,
order does the order is basically the developer presents and we respond, right?
Yes, so the developer has about 20 minutes-ish to give their presentation. Then I'll open the floor for questions and moderate that discussion.
I mean, on the one hand, it's fine, but on the other hand, the community is presented with kind of a 438 South Graham development option in which was nothing included, no content to think or consider ahead of time.
Yes, yes, and we do accept comments for a week or more after these meetings via email or phone or social media. We also look at our social media accounts to see what people say, because we understand that it takes time to digest this. I apologize, I left that out of my introduction.
Christina,
So we
feel
do
free to,
welcome that
Agreed.
you let your neighbors know that that this is on our website and available so that people can look at it and react to it.
Christina, feel free to circulate the PowerPoint as well, if people want
Yes.
to digest that in their own time.
Yes, the PowerPoint will also be up and available on our website, which is bloomfieldpgh.org. So without further ado, I will turn the meeting over to Bill Gotti at Trek and your team, Bill. You can take it away.
Sounds good. Thanks, Christina, and Sam as well for just creating this forum where we can have these important conversations and get to the bottom of these issues. So thank you. With me today, I'm Bill Gotti. I'm the president and founder of Trek Development Group. We're a real estate development firm, property management firm based in Pittsburgh. We've been active in the region for a long time, almost 30 years. We specialize in housing and community redevelopment type projects. Just to name a few, I'll mention we're doing the Mellon's Orchard site in East Liberty, Mellon's Orchard South, which is inviting back some displaced residents from Penn Plaza, and that's in a mixed income format. We're also happy to report we're going to be breaking ground on the Garden Theater Block redevelopment as soon as we can pull a building permit. So we really think we're just a couple of weeks away from that after a long journey there. And there's a good bit of information about us available at our website as well, trekdevelopment.com. So I welcome any and all of you to check that out or reach out to me personally as well. With me today, I have Kevin Wagstaff, principal at a downtown-based architectural firm, Perfido, Weiskopf, Wagstaff, and Gettle. His name under his picture there says William Gotti because I forwarded him the Zoom meeting, but you'll see him when he starts talking. It's not me. Don't be fooled. John Janaki, our executive vice president, is on as well. And I believe one of our project managers, Janelle Kemmerer, is on as well. So we'll all be available. I know Kevin has a bit of a hard stop. But what time was that, Kevin? 6:45?
Yes, that's right, Bill.
So, but I can hang on as long to answer questions as anybody cares to, but we'll get through our presentation quickly. And just by way of background, we were invited to the table last fall over the break by Tony Ross, who is the developer that currently has control of the Albright, has legal control of the property. I believe the project has been stuck where it is for a while. He was trying a different approach, just wasn't gaining community consensus. So he asked if we'd come in and consider an affordable or mixed income residential approach and see if that got the project off the dime, so to speak. So we've looked at it from that context, and those findings are what we want to present to you this evening. And it's a complex project. It's, this rare sort of collision between historic restoration and affordable development, which don't always mesh. So I'm happy to answer whatever questions about that. If it was a high-end condominium transaction, saving the church might be a little easier than trying to produce affordable living options in this market. And another thing to consider, the church hierarchy, the owners of the church, their goal is to sell a piece of property that's of no use to them anymore. So that's what they're trying to do. So there's trying to just harness these disparate, sometimes divergent ideas into a cohesive redevelopment plan can be challenging. So we gave it our best shot, and we're eager to present our ideas and happy to be invited to the table, and hopefully we can get to a good place. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Kevin, and you can click through your findings there, and then we'll open it up for Q&A.
Okay, Christine, I want to share my screen. I don't know if that's I think you have to enable that for me, please.
There's a green button at the bottom that says share screen.
We do
Okay,
have
yeah, now
to,
it's working.
Oh, it's
okay,
not working.
It is now.
okay.
Okay, so we have a set of slides to take you through, just essentially to try to explain our thinking on this. As Bill noted, our design charge was to look at affordable housing in an apartment building. This is just an overview of the site at Center and Graham, the church in the red oval. We have a few slides just so everybody understands the building, because we know that, as Bill mentioned, there's this tension between the preservation of the building versus redeveloping the site for affordable housing. So this is the current state of the church. There's a side entrance on Graham, the house at the rear. It abuts the Levin mattress store at the rear of the site. And then on the west side of the site, it abuts the Wendy's parking lot. So looking at that side. And it has a small kind of rear yard area as well on the right. This is the interior. The building is intact, but has suffered and continues to suffer a fair amount of water damage from water getting into the roof. But this is the main sanctuary space. Stained glass windows at the front. It's sort of unusual in that there's this secondary space that opens off the sanctuary to kind of expand it, big fold-in doors and rooms at the back. I think like nursery spaces, perhaps, upper level. These are the entrance, which is in the bell tower on the left, and then a second floor room in the bell tower. And then the basement, which has a lot of standing water in it right now. Quickly, the context. So this is looking down Center Avenue to the east. So a lot of the buildings are built right to the street and have storefronts at the street level. Looking up South Graham Street towards the new apartment building on the right. Center Avenue looking west. Again, you can see the street level storefronts on the left. The church is elevated about 10 feet off of the street level. And then South Graham looking to the south. So the first thing we did was look at, well, what could we do if we kept the church or a portion of the church? So these are just some quick diagrams explaining the challenges there. Well, first the zoning. This is a UNC district. Multifamily residential is permitted. The floor area ratio, you're permitted up to a 4-to-1 ratio. So you're permitted to build a building up to 87,000 square feet, 4 stories and 60 feet. It is possible to go higher with a special exception, although we have not proposed that in this scheme. And you're required to provide parking on site for 0.7 spaces per dwelling unit when you use the bike parking reduction. It's just diagrammatically looking at the site. So the main spaces, the sanctuary and the tower, they sit right in the middle of the site. And the building itself occupies a good portion of the site. And as I mentioned before, it's elevated 10 feet or so above Center Avenue, the main floor level of the church. So if we just overlay on that an apartment building kind of footprint, a double loaded corridor apartment building, you can see there's really no place on the site to put an efficient apartment building and preserve the church. So then we started to think, well, is there some way we could preserve pieces of the church, such as the sanctuary and the tower, and wrap a new apartment building around it? This is quite challenging as well because it's quite inefficient. You'd have to build a whole lot of corridor relative to the amount of apartment building you're building and a whole lot of exterior wall. So it really makes it an unaffordable kind of concept to do that, in addition to the significant costs that would be involved in partially demolishing the church while at the same time preserving the sanctuary and the tower. So this seemed like kind of a dead end for us in terms of its feasibility. So then we looked at, well, if it was a vacant lot, an empty lot, we would be looking at an L-shaped building, most likely, that fronted the two streets, followed the general fabric of the neighborhood of building to the street, the courtyard space in the rear. You can see how that overlaps with the existing church. So then we looked at, well, could we maybe preserve just the bell tower and create an entrance court with the bell tower? And that's kind of where we had ended up in our first iteration of, very first study of this. But I think our general conclusion along the track was that this wasn't a particularly satisfying solution, and it kind of tried to put the two together in a way that wasn't likely to be successful. And this term facadism is, I think, kind of gets at the crux of how we felt that solution was ending up, where it's a term that, you can Google, it's out there, that just gets at this idea of trying to preserve historic architecture, but only preserving it in some fragment kind of way and combining it with new construction. So we concluded that after this study that if you want to do affordable housing on this site, that the church is really not compatible with that idea in a practical way, in a financial way, and in terms of doing something that architecturally is successful. So we ended up with the idea that instead we would look at the artifacts of the church and how they might be displayed or integrated into a new building, or even salvaged and used elsewhere. So these are just a few of those kinds of elements: stained glass, some of the woodwork at the altar, the organ, some of the ornamental light fixtures, the entrance doors, that sort of thing. So the other thing I should point out about all those diagrams is none of them accommodated parking on the site. And that is required both for zoning and, pragmatically speaking, we need to provide parking for the residents. Some of them will have cars. So this diagram just looks at the assumption that the church is no longer there. And we're looking at a 4-story building with its front facing Center Avenue and accommodating parking in the rear, with a portion of that parking being under the rear wing of the building. This would allow us to really activate Center Avenue with storefront and building entrance along the street at the street level. And then the second floor of the building can extend over the parking at the rear. So again, you're building up to South Graham Street, defining the street and screening the parking. So that kind of takes you through the way we looked at the site. Now we'll just show you a design concept. These are still very conceptual drawings. They're drawn with, and modeled with a computer, but you should think of them as sketches, really. This is looking at the first floor. We're proposing that the apartment building really have a relatively small footprint at the street, with a lobby and an office and a common room. And that lobby then extends through to the rear of the building, so that there's also an entrance to the building from the parking lot. So whether you're coming from the street, taking the bus or walk, or coming from your car, you're entering into the lobby. And then the rest of Center Avenue's frontage there is devoted to some mix of commercial tenant space and community meeting space. And one of the things that we'd heard in a prior meeting was desire not to lose the community meeting space kind of function that the church had once provided. So we're thinking that that could be something that could be incorporated into the first floor of this building. And then the rest of the site is devoted to parking and service. You can see the dimensions of the site are 150 feet by 145 feet. So we're really, in order to fit the building and the parking, we're consuming the site.
You know, couldn't you achieve the same with parking in the back, underground and one level above, and maintain the present building?
Well,
I'm sorry, Michael. So sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure if you missed, but we are holding all questions and comments until after the developers finish with their presentation. And then I'll open the floor and moderate those. Thanks.
to just quickly answer that question, the problem is the church is elevated from the street level, from both street levels, and it sits in the middle of the site. And parking has inflexible dimensions to fit the required 30 parking spaces on the site. You need, that much space, and the church, is occupying a good chunk of that space. If you include the house with the church, it's occupying more than half that space. The upper level then would be apartments, floors 2, 3, and 4. So this floor plan would repeat. So this is a total of 42 apartments, 9 of them 2-bedroom units, 33 of them 1-bedroom units, served by an elevator and then the 2 fire stairs at each end. These are just some 3D views. So this is showing the building facing the street, wrapping the corner, and then the parking in the rear. The site, the adjacent site, the site itself now rises to the rear, so we would need to use some retaining walls at the rear of the site to make the parking work. So it's not underground parking or structured parking, it's at grade, but it is below the adjacent grade level. And that's just looking another view of it. And then this is looking at the street front. So we're prioritizing Center Avenue with storefronts along Center Avenue and more masonry on the building along Center Avenue. So these 4 storefronts would all be retail and community space. And then the building entrance for the apartments would be at the corner with the office space on the corner. So their office staff is kind of keeping an eye on the comings and goings of the building. And then above, basically each bay window is the living room on each floor for the apartments that face Center Avenue. And then as you turn the corner, the masonry returns back for some distance. It kind of creates a front building, and then the rear wing is clad in siding on the upper floors, masonry on the lower floors. The common room for the apartment residents has glass opening onto the street along the side, and then you can see the vehicular entrance into the parking area. So from the street, it has the look of being a parking garage. Here's a better view of that. Initially, you're pulling under the building, but as you drive through to the rear of the parking lot, you're now in an exterior parking area. And so that's what we've developed to date. Again, this is a concept, despite the fact that it's rendered with a computer.
Great.
So
Did you
just to,
have anything else to add? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, just to wrap that up,
Yeah.
Christina, just bring it home and then open up to the floor. It's historic preservation is a core value of ours at Trek Development Group. We've preserved many buildings historically. We reuse significant buildings. We value old buildings, whether they're historically designated or not. Losing old buildings is hard, and losing, especially a church, losing an old church is sad. And this city, as we all work together to try to rebuild and remake Pittsburgh, it's happening everywhere. Like the Catholic Church, churches are coming offline. We're in the middle of a number of those discussions, trying to figure out what happens to these buildings. So these are not easy conversations to have. What we have concluded, though, is given the conditions that we don't control at this site, that the best path forward is this what you see before you, which is a demolition and this new mixed income structure. Even producing this building will be a financial lift. You know, it's not a slam dunk. We'll have to go through, you know, a couple years of fundraising and securing financing and credits and gaining support from the URA and the city. And that's not a challenge that we are willing to take on, you know, without the support of organizations like this one. We're not interested in a fight if we can't find a path forward. That we're not naive. We don't expect unanimity, you know, unanimous. But if we can't build consensus around this idea, we won't move forward with it. I live in the neighborhood, for whatever that's worth, right on the other side of Center Avenue, up by the Freivogel funeral home. So I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. I've been here almost 30 years. So we really want to see something good and important and viable happen here as well, that's additive to the neighborhood. So we're eager to hear reactions to this concept and answer any questions you may have.
Great,
Thank
you. Thanks, Bill, and everyone. Before we open up, just to review again, so we will keep you muted until we call on you to ask questions. Feel free to put them in the chat. You know, please raise your hand if you do need to ask a question, and you know, be patient. We want to make sure everyone has a chance to speak who wants to, before we go back to people to open it up for more questions and comments from the same folks. And also to clarify that TREC is not asking for variances. They're not going to zoning or planning at this point. This is a very preliminary community meeting to understand, because of the challenges of the site, that there is a beautiful old historic church there, and the owner, Tony Ross, would like to develop the property. TREC is proposing this, but again, does not want to move forward unless they know that they have community support. And I wanted to clarify our role. So Bloomfield Development does not take a position on developments, all the development talk, until we have heard from the community. And what that can mean is, it always means at least one community meeting. Sometimes it can mean more. Sometimes there are surveys before or after these meetings. Sometimes we'll even go out into the streets or at the Bloomfield Saturday Market and also gather feedback. You know, this church is significant. This is kind of a significant proposal. And so we want to ensure that we're hearing from folks. And as Mr. I want to make sure I'm saying it. Mr. Starsnick brought up earlier, that we will accept comments and questions via email, via phone, on social media. We do prefer them via email and phones. We can make sure that we address them quicker, because we aren't always paying attention. Sam, again, our housing mobility coordinator, who's taking notes, just dropped our contact information into the chat. And so also, if you aren't able to stay for the meeting, or for some reason your question doesn't get answered, please drop it in the chat. We will make sure those questions get answered and are added to the notes that will be made public after this meeting. And it does take us a few days to clean up the notes because we type really fast, just an FYI. So they'll be released definitely by early next week. So with that, I want to open it to comments and questions. Feel free to raise your hand or drop anything in the chat and I will read your question or comment out. Very quiet meeting tonight. Okay,
Okay.
Ryan Morden, please go ahead.
Hey everyone, I live up on Coral Street and thank you for the presentation. Trek, I like what you've done. In East Liberty, I think the Melons Orchard thing is awesome. I think turning an empty parking lot into housing is great. I'm yes in my backyard for affordable housing. And I don't know, I just don't think that this project is I'm for the preservation of the church. And I think that what I've seen, I appreciate the effort. I mean, it's further than what we were before. You know, the drive-through Starbucks was like, that was awful. But I think that this proposal kind of moves us forward. So I appreciate that. I did notice there were some comments, and I've seen it in the Pittsburgh Business Times too, that keeps bring this comment. It's the preservationists before the affordable housing advocates. And I don't really appreciate that dichotomy because I think it tries to, it comes off as a developer pitting two community interests against each other. And I think that what's prohibiting affordable housing is a whole ball of wax that's all economic and all that. But personally, I'm not on board with what I saw today. I think it's a great idea, but I'm in favor of preservation of the church. And that's my comment.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And just a quick comment on that Business Times article, you know how sound bites are, if you've ever talked to a reporter, they sort of seized upon that preservation versus affordability notion. Those words did come out of my mouth, that's true, but it's a much more nuanced discussion than that. So just, that's my retort to that. So I appreciate your comment.
Yeah, I think something that I was quoted in also pulled that out and kind of distilled it down. I remember cringing when I read it. So yeah.
Yeah, it
that
doesn't,
happens.
it can be a false choice, certainly. In this case, though, in our professional opinion, given the constraints that we have, the ownership, the cost of the site, and the financial toolbox at our disposal, we do believe that's a choice that needs to be made. If any of those upstream conditions were to change, like if the church said, you know what, we don't want to sell it anymore, we'd be happy to, for this price, we'd sell it for a lot less, you know, that could change, but that's just not where we are.
Oh, Michael Stars, you dropped that you're ready to ask, wish to hear from others first. Did you want to ask your question now or comment?
Well, yeah, I just don't want to interrupt others who may have a comment, but I would hope that some of those upstream considerations would change because you will never have a more beautiful building or a more valuable building, stone, stained glass, than the one that is there now. So I always contend in historic preservation, which has trade-offs. It always has trade-offs. Never give up a superior building for an inferior building. And I would encourage us to try to preserve this building, and parking could be in the back and slightly lower. And there could be an apartment building could be in the back corner rather than the front corner. And UPMC could decide that it's a treatment facility where people walk through a gorgeous entrance lobby ahead of time. We simply have to, if you look at this fractal corner of Pittsburgh, and it's a fractal city by the nature of Three Rivers, that you have all these sort of 5 intersections coming together. This is one of the most important. There are 2 churches and a Wendy's there, and a bunch of crappy parking lots. So the sort of open lungs of the city for city design have to be preserved at this corner. And we'll never get a better building than the one that is there right now. So I implore us all to go back to the drawing board and say this building has to survive and the greenery around it has to survive to make it a livable city for Pittsburgh.
thanks. Melissa McSwagan, you had your hand up next.
Hi everyone. I'm Melissa. On a little personal note, my step siblings happen to be related to the architect of the former Albright Church. That's just a little aside. And also my comments are not going to be really directed at Trek and the architects, because I know you all have done good work. I know you've worked with, existing buildings, adaptive reuse. So I do thank you for that, and hope you'll, continue forward on that. But my, this all really rubs me the wrong way. Like, I feel like, sort of like what Ryan said previously, like this whole process feels a little disingenuous. Initially a drive-through Starbucks or some kind of drive-through, building was proposed, and the developer was not able to, get the proper approval, nor could community support be given for that. There also was a zoning hearing that the developer did not win on. And so now, now the developer thought that this would be a more palatable idea, which, for which of course, we get into this preservation versus affordable housing thing. And, it's a little bit frustrating. We're going back, however many years when we had actually a building in good shape. And as I understand from the former congregation members, this building had been invested in. I know we saw the pictures today where things looked like, water damage and all that, but it wasn't that long ago, in my understanding, that the building was actually, in decent shape. It even had been, I think there was even maybe an elevator had been put in, or there were things that had been done to update it. And, now it's been left, no one has invested in it for the past few years, and probably, well, anyway, I won't get into that, but, and now we're sort of put in this very, sort of awkward position, and just the whole process when we could have all been working on this, 4 years ago, which is why when we were trying to, support the reuse of the building and turn it into some kind of community space, 4 years ago, or whenever it was, why, I'm not sure why we are here now. It's just frustrating, and I'm not really putting my feelings in the most articulate way, but I have been involved in the earlier few years prior, and so it's just really more with regard to the process, but really nothing against Trek or the architects.
Thanks for your comments. If it's okay, I'll speak to a little bit of that, because I think some of this is understandably directed at us. So Bloomfield Development did not really operate in this area much, as Bomb Center Initiative did. And then with the registered community organization process, or the city planning created this registered community organization process. We became the registered community organization about 3 years ago. And so we do have kind of an onus now to run these community meetings. Bomb Center Initiative hasn't yet received their registered community organization status. And also we have staff, so we have a little bit more capacity. And we had a much smaller staff. It was a staff of 2.5, 1 3/4 then, and the last few years we've been able to bump it up a little bit, which means we're able to expand kind of where we're looking and try to help out more in more projects in a more meaningful way. We have had a lot of conversations prior to Trek coming to us and after with other developers, specifically nonprofit developers and other nonprofits, trying to get somebody interested in a reuse of the building. We have been unsuccessful. I think I've been open with Bill that that doesn't mean we're going to, stop trying, but at this point, this is kind of what's being proposed. So we wanted to make sure that the community had a fair opportunity now to speak. And Bill, if you have anything to add, please go ahead.
I understand exactly where she's coming from, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, she's saying is, hey, we're here now, and I get that, but did we have to be here? If we would have all been on the same page 5 years ago, or we're all working towards the same goal, then maybe we wouldn't be here. It's a fair point.
Yeah.
I mean, what I could say, just strictly economically speaking, the value of the property is over $1 million, and that's what the church seeks to get for that. You get its value. So when that happens, then you have to produce something that can support that price. If the site was free, if the church says, we want to donate this to the city and make it a community center, and then it became more of like a union project type thing where there was fundraising, and that can work, but that's not the conditions that we have here. So, and just for the group, I would say we like to give the neighborhood what they want. We set out to reuse a portion of this building. That's what my charge was to the architects: figure out a way to solve all these problems. But ultimately what it yielded was something that we didn't think looked right. It was like this building with a bell tower sticking out of it, or this sort of oddly shaped thing. We couldn't solve it, in a meaningful and legitimate way. So this is where we are. Doesn't mean it has to be what happens, but this is just where we are. So that's the best response I can give.
Yeah, that's helpful. Let's see, Susan, you had your hand up next, and then Adam. Yeah, Michael, we'll get to you, but like I said, we want to make sure everybody gets a chance. So thanks for being patient with us. Susan, do you want to go ahead? Susan Peterson.
I have
Hi.
two kind of more technical questions. This is affordable housing, the entire building, or is it mixed income? Can you explain what that means?
We're not all the way to the end of that discussion, but that depends on market studies and the constraints of funding and things like that. I'd envision a mixed approach here, similar to what we have in East Liberty, which is a combination of affordable and market rate. We feel that's the most sustainable approach, as it doesn't put a high density of lower income folks in one place. It's more of like a socially engineered, for lack of a better word, mixed community. So that's what we do. So that's what I'd envision here.
And my other question was, so the church, United Methodist Conference, actually still owns the property, but Tony Ross just controls it?
Yes.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks. There was a question waiting in here, sorry, and then I think Jennifer, you're next. The question in the chat is, the presenter mentioned that the stained glass windows and other parts of the church might be integrated into the new design. From the images presented, I don't see how they would fit in. Can you please elaborate? Can you elaborate?
That's probably one for Kevin. Kevin, are you still with us, or did you have to leave?
He did have to sign off, yes.
Oh, shoot. So yeah, I mean, we have to find a way to reuse that stained glass. It's gorgeous. So maybe interiorly, like on interior walls in assembly spaces, I could see that. I see your point. You're saying, how do we do this traditional sort of linear looking apartment building and then put a arch top stained glass in it. I think it would probably be repurposed on the interior of the structure, but if we could get eyes on it exteriorly, that'd be great. We're not to the end of that analysis. Kevin could probably give a better answer than that. Sorry about that.
Jennifer Haven.
Hi. So in full disclosure, I was one of the appellants in the original lawsuits, both on the historic preservation and on the zoning case that went to the Court of Common Pleas. And so it's frustrating to me that we as community members had to fundraise to have legal representation to not have a drive-through Starbucks, for then the church and or Tony Ross, and I know this is not you, to then disinvest in this building purposefully so that they could then claim it would be too expensive to reuse this building because of the deterioration. And so when I'm thinking about affordable housing versus historic preservation, and I agree with what Ryan and Melissa and others have said, that that's really a false choice. To me, it comes down to how, and I am very much in favor of affordable housing. And again, our community group was also involved in the lawsuits regarding the Penn Plaza apartments to get affordable housing there. And so I truly do see the value of affordability in my neighborhood. I live, blocks away from here. But when I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering to myself, and I know you don't know this yet, but how many affordable units are going to be placed there? If it's 10% and you are giving us 40 apartments, so that would be 4 units. And if you are giving us this affordability at 60% even of the AMI, and I'm balancing that with destroying a 150-year-old structure to maybe hopefully have the stained glass on the inside of the building reused, I don't know if that's really a fair choice. When I see, the St. Casimir Church in the South Side, or you have the First United Methodist Church in Harrisburg, or in other, in other towns in Narberth, Pennsylvania, there have been like 4 churches that have been repurposed into apartments, and 2 of those were for mixed income buildings. And so I'm not sure, and I love the work that you have done around the community and around Pittsburgh. I absolutely do. And I really do value you as a partner for affordability and reuse. But I just wonder, have we thought hard enough? Have we fought hard enough? When we were first fighting United Methodist, it was 5 of us. It was 5 individuals. And like Christina said, they weren't operating in this area yet. So we didn't even have the support of a full-fledged community group behind us. So then what happens now if we have the 37 of us and we have community groups and we have a well-known developer, and I see the faces of well-known preservationists here. And I don't know if Deb Gross is on the line still, but I know that she is in favor of both affordability and preservation. And so if we have all of our voices together, is this still $1 million site? Do you still have to pay that price? Can we leverage foundation money? Can we leverage historic tax credit money? Is there any other money out there that we can use before we say this is too expensive, pitch the building out? And that was a lot to be said, but I had it building up inside of me, and I just really felt that I needed to just say it all, and I don't expect answers to it all, but I really would like for everyone to not necessarily go back to the drawing board, but can that be an option? Can we keep an open mind that that's a possibility? Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Jennifer. That I get it. That was good. It was good analysis. Just a few things I'll comment on because there's a lot there I can't really comment on. Can you hear me? Thanks. Yeah. So just one comment. We're not saying, this is more of a clarification. We're not saying the building's deteriorated and that's why we can't save it. We've saved worse, much worse. So all that water, that foot of water in the basement isn't helping, but that's not the reason we can't save it. We can't save it because the toolbox available for affordability and the cost of the site are leading us to where we are. So maybe what your question is if this just didn't happen and this just deal fell apart and the church was stuck and Tony Ross bailed out and there was no path forward, would the church possibly rethink what they want to get out of it? And I don't know, maybe. So, but that would probably take years to unfold what you're describing there in my experience. So that's just my most candid response I can give to that. There are many other factors in that, but I don't think I can say pretty authoritatively that the reason I don't think this was a deliberate play to cause this building to decline and then say, it's too late, we can't fix it, because that isn't the way I was approached. The way I was approached by Tony was, we've worked so hard on this, we'd hate to see nothing happen here. Can you make something happen here that people might like? So that's why we're here.
Thanks, and thanks, Jennifer. Amy, you're next, but I'm going to take one or two quick questions that have been, or comments that have been languishing here in the chat. Rob, I skipped over yours. Rob Pfaffman, this is at the crossroads of 4 neighborhoods. Is this project going for BCI 2? Yes, I think yes. Yeah, it's just barely technically in Bloomfield. Sam took care of kind of the outreach for this meeting, and so we did reach out to Erica Strasberger's office as well as Deb Gross's office. By the way, thank you for being here, Deb. We see you on the call. And as well as all the community groups around Shady Side Action Coalition, Friendship. I think I thought I saw Lenore Williams from Bomb Center Initiative on the meeting, but it looks like she may have dropped off. But yeah, we're also in very close communication with them. I serve on the Bomb Center Initiative Executive Committee as well. Not that that changes anything. And there was one other question. How is affordable being defined for this project? You're on mute, Bill. But you look like you're.
Yes, thank you for asking that. It wouldn't be 10%. Like in East Liberty, we're doing 75% affordable at 60 and below, and there's deeper income targeting underneath that. So I would envision something similar here.
Will you accept vouchers? Follow-up question. Housing
Yes.
choice vouchers. Okay.
We do
drive
accept
the cost down.
vouchers.
Okay.
Everywhere we accept vouchers,
Okay.
even in
Thanks.
market
We see
rate.
each other. I'm having trouble seeing the videos of everybody.
We see
I'm
you.
not sure why. We can see you. Amy, go ahead with your question.
Well, a lot of people pretty much covered what I wanted to say, but I do want to stand up for the church itself. I want to say first that I really like the development plans. Like, it looks so much better than a lot of the crap that we've been seeing around town lately. I like the look of the brick. I like how the parking's in the back, how it would be a mixed use. thing. I just wish we could put it on another corner and not tear down this historic church. I don't live in the neighborhood, but I had family who attended here, and I have personal connections to the building. I'm also on the board of Preservation Pittsburgh and the chair of our Religious Architectural Heritage Committee. We have been focusing, well, I've been focusing a lot on other repurposed churches and what people are putting into these amazing buildings, because there's, well, some say there's not a lot you can do with them, but there really is. And a lot of people have come up with some amazing ideas outside of apartments. I just toured a boutique hotel in Nashville last week that isn't a repurposed church, but it has a bigger lot. So we're constricted here by the size of the lot. I get that the church is putting a big wrench in any plans of saving it because of what they want for the space. That's a really important point. But I just wanted to say that my personal opinion is that we should do what we can to save the church and put something viable into it, instead of looking at it as, we want to have affordable housing, let's try to put it here and tear down this building. We win some, we lose some, you know, it is what it is. I do like the look of the plans. I just wanted to stand up for the church. Thanks.
Thank you. You got another corner for me? Happy to go to another one.
I wish.
It's my job to keep working. Emily, thanks for reaching out. I forgot to also, I didn't see you on here, but Emily Yonan is here from Erica Strasberger's office as well. So I just wanted to call that out. Note that our elected officials are listening. There's a long comment here from Walter Haim. Says, my gut reaction is that the program being proposed in this redevelopment, dense mixed income housing with commercial and community space, is ideal and greatly needed in our city. Walt, do you want to take over your comment? You're welcome. I just saw you turn your video on if you'd like to state it yourself, or I can keep going. It's up to you.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm a resident on South Weinbiddle Street, and then I am on the Bloomfield Development Corporation Property and Planning Committee. You know, I just do think this particular program is like such a needed, and I think there's a lot of like development sites around the city that if we saw this plop in here, like this would be the development we want to see that happening. Is like, it has the ground floor commercial and community space, and has dense, affordable, mixed income housing. Architecturally, what I'm seeing is very nice at this stage of the draft. Understanding this isn't even going towards PHFA, which is the Housing Finance Agency, and then there's like a whole nother round of developing the design beyond that. So this is a really good architectural start. And I'm just wondering, I know the United Methodist Church is potentially looking at splitting in the future. Does that play a role in any economic strategy?
I don't know that either Bill or I or anyone on this call can answer that. I know we were very interested in trying to get someone from the Methodist Conference, you know, someone with decision-making authority or access to them or knowledge of this project here, so that we could potentially have them answer some questions, but I don't know that that has happened. Bill?
No, I mean, candidly, I've had very minimal contact with them. A couple of conference calls, and it was also the times, you know, the COVID. But yeah, I have no knowledge of the splitting or what the ramifications of that might be.
Okay. Jody, you had your, Jody Lincoln, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Apologize.
Technical difficulties.
Apologies if this has already been asked. I had to step out for a second. But can you describe a little bit, if you move forward, what your financing plans would look like? Would you be going for, you know, tax credit, 4% rate, or what kind of, you know, funding would you be looking like from the URA? And if you do have, you know, specific goals on what percentage of the apartments, you would look for affordability. And just some more details on what that process would look like and what you've outlined so far would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, sure. So even though as many of us have expressed, though they like this building, it doesn't have the gravitas, that a 100-year-old church does. It's a bit of a stretch financially, even producing that, what we have in front of you, especially with what's going on with construction and commodity pricing. So we're showing an all masonry building there. So this is just like a caveat for the group. That's a stretch. Like if you look at our Mellon's Orchard site, there's a lot more siding on that one. And that was priced out 2 years ago. So we still have to go through a process to figure out how to deliver what we're representing here. So I attach that. What we'd envision is if the community group chose to support us, we would set to work on the program. What I would expect is probably 75% affordability, 25% market rate. The affordable pieces would be 60% of the area median income and below. We'd expect an application for 9% credits to the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency in the next application round, which is unknown at this point. It's probably going to be early in 2022. Everything's upside down there now because of what's happening with lumber prices, and deals can't close, so they have this big backlog. But they've indicated that the application would be in January of 2022. But to prepare an application and go through the process, that costs us hundreds of thousands of dollars and thousands of hours in staff time. So we just wouldn't take that on without community support. So we'd have to feel confident that the community was with us. We would need URA support. URA, either RIDIP funds or PDF would be their typical sources, but if I read in the Post-Gazette correctly, they're getting 50 million from the feds. So maybe that they're earmarking for reinvestment in communities. So it sounds like they could have some resources available that wouldn't typically be available towards this type of investment. So that's the thumbnail sketch of what we plan to do. If we were successful in securing credits, that we wouldn't know that till next summer of 2022. We probably wouldn't be able to close till say first quarter or summer of 2023, and delivery of new units late in 2024, early 2025. So even if all goes well, it's a 2024, 2025 process. So these things take time.
Yep, no, understood. Thank you. That was what I was looking for.
Thanks.
Thanks. All right. I don't see any other questions or comments in the chat. Michael, go ahead. Can I let Ken go ahead since he hasn't spoken yet? And then I'll get to you, Michael. You'll be next, okay? Ken Stiles, go ahead. You're muted. There you go.
Let's hear the volume, Ken.
Several questions and several comments. Tech does fantastic work. I've been very impressed with the work they've done, and they've clearly got a lot of expertise in saving old buildings. And I was impressed by the comment that they have saved worse than the Albright Church. There's also a comment made that just a few years ago, there was no water damage inside, and the church was in good repair. Now it's not. This is sort of intentional neglect by an owner to let a building deteriorate to the point where it cannot be financially possible to save it. Has any pressure been put upon the city to enforce the building code requirements that owners keep their buildings in good repair? And who would be the proper person to say, hey, building inspection should get out there and find out why the roof is leaking and require the owner to make repairs so there is no further damage. Right now, they're sitting in the catbird seat. They're sitting there, the property is getting worth more and more as development property. They're not investing in any repairs. They're just waiting us out, as they have been for the last 4 or 5 years. It's going to take some action on the part of the community groups to put pressure on the city to force the owner, which I suspect is the Methodist Church, not Tony Roth, to take action to preserve the building, which they're going to hate to do. That would be the extent of my comments right now.
Thank you. Bill, did you want to say anything, or I'll move on to
I'm not sure
Michael.
what I can really add to that. I mean, I don't know if anybody from the city or the URA is on the phone. I mean, there's a great deal of neglected buildings in the city. And the city sends the URA violation notices for all the time for properties they own. So it's clearly a big challenge they're trying to deal with.
I'll chime in if you would like me to, Christina.
Yeah, please go ahead,
So yeah, as
Councilwoman.
a city council person, this is a problem that is really heartbreaking because you're absolutely right, Mr. Stiles. We should be issuing citations across the city. And we see this by speculators of all kinds, of all walks of life in every city neighborhood. It's just demolition by neglect, right? It's what we call it. Letting buildings rot in place. And it's gone on for far too long. We basically need to hire 20 more inspectors, I think. I just kind of made that number up out of the blue. But I know that we aren't enforcing occupancy codes. We aren't enforcing building codes. And this is, I don't know how much longer we can go on like this, right? This is a problem that I think we all need to call attention to, that we need to bring buildings up to code compliance, both for the people who are living in these buildings that aren't up to code, and certainly for the abandoned buildings that is no longer a city that can tolerate that kind of neglect. So you've got my vote. Unfortunately, I'm only one voice on the city council out of a budget that failed to increase the number of inspectors for this year's budget. So I will keep raising the issue. That's all I can promise you as your council person. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you. I just want to add on to Deborah Gross's comments, and also Bill. Very thoughtful, I think. But imagine this corner without this church. It's a very green space in a very tight space of the city. There's lots of chock-a-block there, like right across the street is Sherwin-Williams and Panera, and then Wendy's and all their parking lots. It's quite ugly. There are only 2 green spaces right there, and only 2 beautiful buildings to, beautify that part of the city, which is one of the most important intersections in the city. So we will never have another building as beautiful as that one. And I would love to give to the developers to say, not that you have to destroy that because there's no money. Say there is a little bit of money. There's $1 million of Mellon Foundation or Heinz or some other foundation to let you incorporate that building into whatever your plans are. This is a Marshall stained glass company of North Side. This is their most authentic and incorporated total stained glass program of their company that it remains. Who would love to drive the bulldozer that knocks down that beautiful stone, which will never be built? So let's figure it out how to make it incorporated for Pittsburgh. And it has to have some creative financing, it sounds like, to make it worthwhile for the developers who have stood up and tried to give something good with the constraints they've been giving. So thank you all, and come on, let's go forward. Let's imagine a beautiful city in 50 years from now, not a sort of degraded city of everybody crowded too close together. Thank you.
There's a comment from in the chat here. Might non-commercial open to the public neighborhood spaces have been considered when considering alternative land use for this property? The proposed plan privatizes the structure as well as limits any artifacts that would be maintained in new construction. So, Bill, I think the question really is, Oh, I think that's a larger question. We're,
Yeah.
sorry, it took me a minute.
We didn't consider, we wouldn't be the appropriate deliverer of that. That would be more of a nonprofit sponsored or city sponsored effort.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure to the degree that was seriously considered before we got to the table.
On our end, I think we started looking maybe a year ago. We talked with Action Housing and a few others about potential reuse of the building for either some sort of community use. There was a daycare that might have been interested. We thought because of the transportation lines, it would make an excellent kind of job workforce development center, like you see in some other cities. For instance, you know, a coffee shop is opened and folks learn how to be baristas in that coffee shop, and then can go and seek out jobs or other uses. We just haven't been able to find any partners on that at this point. I don't want to in any way say that anyone is done, I think, working on this. I mean, obviously, Jennifer Haven, and I know a lot of the folks who have been are the staunch advocates for, you know, the Albright Church as well, are on this call. And I don't think anybody's ready to stop thinking about that and looking at that. But again, the onus is on us to make sure that we're putting developer plans in front of everyone and listening to what everyone has to say. So I just wanted to kind of make that clear. Any other questions or comments? I'm not seeing any hands raised, nothing else in the chat. Nope, nobody, nothing, nada. Here came Food 21, maybe someone to reach out to for workforce development. They have a program upcoming at the historic Larimer School. And Philip Wu is our city planner. Thank you for being here, Phil, with the Department of City Planning, and shared a link to food21.org. We will look into that. Great. So no other comments or questions. Oh, here's one for Trek. How might the proposed project create value, enhance lives, and strengthen communities?
So that's our mission statement. So I'm going to take that at face value. I'll say that well, it's going to create value by bringing that property back on the tax rolls. It's never been on. Enhance lives, the occupants that live there, and personally, I would argue it strengthens the community, as I don't think there's personally a way back for that church. And when I drive by it, and you know, every day, it's not additive to the community as it sits, and I don't see a path forward for it otherwise. So I think we would produce something that would be a fine example of mixed income development in the neighborhood, and would strengthen the community. And you know, it may sound silly, but I think conversations like this, I think this was a good discussion. I learned some things tonight that I hadn't heard, and I didn't hear any real like yeses, but I heard we got a lot of nice compliments. So I appreciate that. And I think conversations like this strengthen communities because it allows us to learn from each other and clarify our goals and try to get into alignment. That's all I got.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks. Goal, Janine says, goal, keep the church standing. I think that was another comment. Great. Jennifer, you have your hand up.
So when we were talking about possible reuse or other longer term options, and we thought that that would take multiple years to work something out with the Methodist Church. If you were, because you don't need any variances, if you were to move forward on the project that you showed us this evening, how long until we had a building on the ground?
Yeah, I tried to frame that out a few minutes ago. It would be at the earliest, late 2024, early 2025. So it's a process.
There's a comment here. If the United Methodist Church isn't willing to donate the property outright, we can find foundation funding to make it a true public community space and green space. Oh, I'm sorry, Melissa. That comment was from earlier and I missed it. I'm glad I caught it now. Yes, I mean, there is foundation funding. There's a lot of things. I think Bloomfield Development Corporation is not a nonprofit that programs public spaces. Like we're not going, we don't have the capacity, the staff to go in and by program, I mean, run a daycare or whatever that use might be, or a fitness center, or so we have been looking for partners for that, if that was a possibility, or thinking about it. We hadn't really dug into the finances to even see what that would look like because, again, Tony Ross, excuse me, has had the church under contract for 4 or 5 years. I'm sorry. And we were trying to understand if that contract, what that looks like, and understand sort of what the, I'm sorry, I can't think of the word I'm trying to use, the pieces of the contract that we would want to understand a little bit better, or the Methodist conference, what we would want to understand. And I have never spoken with anyone from the Methodist conference about this, not for lack of trying. So we feel a little stonewalled by the Methodist conference at this point, or ongoing. I think that's fair to say. Maybe, yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. But yeah, so anyway, I think we'd be looking for that right now. Bloomfield Development has never owned property, and that doesn't mean we won't in the future, but right now it's not part of kind of our plan. So I just wanted to clarify that. So that's why we're looking at partners, looking at developers, trying to figure out what could be done there. Cool. All right. Any other questions or comments? Oh, Bill, did you want to say something? I saw you.
No, I'm just, I was just wondering if this is the point where we get dismissed and.
It looks like it. Yeah, I was just about to say that. It does look like it. I don't see any other questions or comments coming in.
Yeah, and if whatever you come up with, if there's further questions or you want to schedule a further meeting like this, we'd be happy to participate in that. There is a fuse here. We need to get to work. So if this isn't going to come together, it can't go on open-ended for us. So, but we have some time, at this juncture to answer questions and at least bring some clarity around these issues for the community. So thank you, everybody. It was a good discussion. I appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for being here. Okay. just 1 minute while we allow the Trek team a moment to go. Okay.